doctors, nurses, physician assistants, nurse practitioners, CRNAs, why do we have a tendency to compete with each other? And especially on this forum, why do we keep saying my training is harder? No, my training is harder. No, nursing school is much harder than medical school. No, PA school is harder than medical school. Okay, spoiler alert, nothing's harder than medical school. Nothing, literally, like medical school is the hardest, okay? So let's just end that argument right there. That being said, this person, who I'm assuming is a doctor, yep, Lauren Michelle, MD, yep, medical doctor, I was correct, says, I haven't been to PA school, but it sounds hard. Medical school was no joke. I don't know why people feel the need to compete about this. The MD and DO route is harder and longer, and that's why not all choose it. So the main thing here is, why do we feel a need to compete about this? We can agree on two things. One, we will always feel a need to compete about this. Two, it's stupid to compete about this. But why do we feel a need to compete about this? I actually thought I'd answer the good doctor's question by looking at a little bit of psychological research by, the resource here is eou.edu. I'm not sure what school this is. I'm not sure where EOU is, but thank you for the research. So the nature of hyper-competitiveness, which is something that we all in the medical field can probably be described as. So the nature of hyper-competitiveness, while competitiveness certainly has its advantages, too much competitiveness has been tied to significant psychological drawbacks. Dun, dun, dun. Psychologically, hypercompetitiveness can be defined as an indiscriminate need to compete and win and to avoid losing at all costs. Hypercompetitive people can push themselves to take on too many roles and tasks. I'm going to read that again, and you in the medical field, no matter what your role in the medical field is, you look in the mirror and you tell me if this describes you even just a little tiny eensy-weensy bit. I think that it probably does. Hyper-competitive people can push themselves to take on too many roles and tasks, and ultimately resulting in falling short of their goals, as well as overextending themselves in terms of time and effort. Intensely competitive people also tend to have poor interpersonal relationships. Ouch, that one hurts. An intuitive observation borne out by research. Okay, I'll just read the rest of the quote and then we'll discuss very briefly. Psychological research has also found that the psychology of hypercompetitive people includes motivation primarily by external rather than internal factors, as in, excuse me, they're always chasing like something outside of themselves to make themselves feel better. So once I have that degree on the wall, once I have that job, once I have that nice house, that nice car, that title, that position of authority, I'll feel better about myself, which we all know is a losing battle because you will not feel better about yourself. You'll just be overburdened and overwhelmed by more responsibility and still not really feel like it's enough, and then you get depressed. Hence physician burnout, etc., etc., etc. Obviously a very nuanced topic. It's not just because of this, but the fact of the matter is just obtaining a title of some sort, physician assistant, nurse practitioner, just obtaining more knowledge or being able to do more procedures of some sort or having a really high salary or whatever, it's not going to make you okay with you. Only you can do that. So, it is what it is. Have you ever seen the movie The Count of Monte Cristo? The book doesn't really have this scene, although I think the book is tremendously better and it's just a whole different experience. But in the Hollywood version, I think 2002 is when the movie came out, there was Fernand, who was a count, he was a royal, he grew up with money, and he was just very self-loathing, nothing was enough for him. He obviously had like the huge house, the money, the carriages, everything that money could possibly buy, and he was miserable. And then his best friend, Edmond, who grew up poor, but his dad actually loved him and he actually gave him some time, some effort and everything, actually cared about him as a parent. Edmond was very satisfied with life, with whatever life gave him. And there was that example in the movie where Fernand got a pony, obviously a very expensive present. He got a pony for his birthday as a kid, and Edmond got a whistle. And for whatever reason, Fernand was not nearly as satisfied with his pony as Edmond was with his whistle. And Fernand hated his best friend. He resented him because this guy was so much more satisfied with his tiny little whistle that his poor father gave him as a present, as opposed to Fernand, who got this amazing, extravagant present and still could not be satisfied with it. So that being said, external factors like this, going back to the study here, external factors will not ever make you satisfied. That being said, Hyper-competitive people are motivated primarily by external rather than internal factors. They're constantly seeking the next shiny object as opposed to just looking inside and being satisfied and grateful with what life has given them. So people who are motivated by desire to master a task or who have high self-esteem are less likely to be obsessed with competition. So people who do feel good about themselves, who do love themselves, who know that their purpose is to provide medical care, doesn't mean it has to be a title or whatever it may be. They just really love medicine. They want to help people and or they just want to get good at medicine. Those people tend to not be hyper-competitive and more okay with their role. I'm not saying I'm necessarily one of these people or that I'm better than anybody for whatever reason, but I personally experience the fact that I'm very satisfied in my role. I love that I constantly get to learn more and more and more, and I'm okay not knowing everything. I know enough to not be dangerous. I know enough to help patients, but do I know everything? No. Do I know even remotely everything? No. Do I know even remotely as much as a physician? No. And I'm okay with all of that because I love the process of learning and I love the process of treating people with the limited knowledge that I do have, comparatively limited, obviously. I'm a qualified physician assistant. I've got 3 years of experience. I've gone through a fellowship. I know my stuff, but I still consider it limited because there's always so much more to know in medicine. Am I hyper-competitive? No, I treat every single physician with respect. Even a medical student I already know knows more than me, and I treat them with respect. I don't care how much older I am than them, I treat them with respect because I'm not competitive. In contrast, individuals who derive their self-worth primarily from winning or from social status or tangible rewards that come from winning are more likely to be competitive to an unhealthy degree. So, why are people constantly competing about whose training is harder? Well, they're probably not satisfied with themselves and their choices for whatever reason. So is it, because physicians usually don't compete with physician assistants. You usually see medical students, maybe some residents that are mad about physician assistants encroaching on their practice. No, it's a team. We're here to work together. So those people are obviously very unsatisfied in their current role. And, I kind of don't blame them because they're on this tremendously long pipeline and it's very unsatisfying until you probably get to the end, I would imagine. So I can kind of understand some of the competitiveness and the hate, although I don't think it's appropriate. Physician assistants or nurse practitioners, particularly those that are kind of unsatisfied with their career, might be trying to compete with physicians and medical students and whatnot and say, hey, we know just as much as you do. Our training was actually harder because it was everything that you learned in 2 years. BS. No, it's not, guys. No, it's not. Okay, chill out. No, we're not physicians who are simply trained in 2 years. No, we don't know what they do. Stop it. So the point is, hyper-competitiveness, like these people that keep arguing about whose training is harder, is born out of psychological instability, or at the very least, a level of low satisfaction with life. And I hope that those folks that keep arguing in the comments take a little bit of time to journal, maybe make yourself a nice green smoothie, take a walk around the block, get some sun on your face, and calm the F down.